freaking have cow. That's all I
Oh
want.
my God.
So the reason that we're here today is because one of the first questions that I ask buyers when they come to me is, are you pre-approved? Are you working with a lender? It's important for us to understand that process. So Mina's going to fill us in, and it's all going to be fun and games.
No, but like you want to know as an agent that the person that you're taking around to 36 homes has their financing in place and has the ability to purchase the homes that you're showing them.
Correct.
Right? And then from a buyer's perspective, like you need to be educated on what you can actually qualify for. But not only that, it's kind of two-faceted because you want to know what you can qualify for, but you also want to know what's my monthly payment going to look like.
Right.
With interest rates being as high as they are right now and home prices being on the higher end in Hawaii, it could be a lot more than what you're expecting. And it will be more than what you're paying in rent.
So what happens when I send a client to you?
So when you send over a client to me, I always just try to connect with them via phone. Sometimes people don't want to talk on the phone, which is okay. Sometimes they want to just do things via email, but I at least try to do an intro call with them because I want to know, just talk story. Like I want to know just generally what's your financial situation, what do you do for work, what are we dealing with here? Are you trying to buy something for you and your family as a primary residence? Are you trying to purchase something as a vacation home in Hawaii? Are you looking for a rental? So like there's just like a laundry list of intro questions that I ask just to figure out generally what box they're going to fit in, right? Because every lender is different. There's hundreds of loan products out there, and not every single one is going to be a good fit for everyone. Once we have our talk story call, the next step is to take the application. You can do it, it's flexible. You can do it over the phone with me, you can do it online.
Can I just ask too, because people do ask me, it's a secure website when they're putting in their financial information, right? Okay.
Yeah, so you are putting in your, like all of your basic private information, your legal name, address, phone number, email, date of birth, social security, right? So it is all sensitive information. It's all going through a secure portal. And even when we get into the document collection phase, all of that goes through a secure portal as well. So nothing to worry about there. You go through the application process. It shouldn't take you more than like 20, 25 minutes. Some people are more complicated than others, so the time varies. But the application's kind of phased out in little chunks. You've got your personal information, your assets, your liabilities, your income, and then at the end there's a bunch of yes or no questions regarding have you owned property before, have you had any negative credit events in the past. So 20, 25 minutes should get you through the application, whether you're doing it over the phone or you're doing it online. Once you have the application come through, typically I will do a soft pull on the credit. That means you're not getting a hard inquiry. Most people or a lot of people who are looking in Hawaii aren't looking to buy immediately. But if you're actively shopping and you're out there looking at homes, and if you found the right home today, you would put in an offer. If the answer to that is yes, then we really do need to do a hard pull. We need to know exactly what the financial situation looks like, credit score, debts, all of that. So once we do the credit score or the credit check, the application, the credit check, I'm going to give you a list of documents that I need from you. And like we mentioned, it's going to go through a secure portal. But once I get all of the documentation, I've got your application, I've done the credit check, now I have a pretty decent understanding or financial picture of what we're dealing with. I also ask in the discovery call, like, I try to figure out what the limitations are to financing or qualification, I should say, because sometimes it's the max payment. Like, we really just, knowing my own finances and my own situation, I cannot pay more than $3,500 a month in mortgage. And when I say mortgage payment or housing payment, I'm talking the mortgage, so that's principal and interest. You've got property taxes, home insurance, mortgage insurance if you're putting less than 20% down, and some places have HOAs or maintenance fees if you're looking at a condo. So all of those things considered, basically everything except for your utilities, do you have a max number in mind? I think everyone has a max number, but there are definitely people who are more driven by that number than anything else. So is it that, or is it I have $35,000 to work with? That's it. That's everything that I have, and I can't go over that. That sometimes will allow me to back into a qualification number from a purchase price standpoint, right? Once I factor in all the different things, depending on if we're looking at a single family home or a condo with the maintenance fees, okay, that $35,000 in for your down payment and closing costs. Folks, it's not just the down payment that you have to bring money for. There are closing costs. Now, there are options to have sellers help you pay for those. maybe you can get a gift from family. I mean, there's options around that, but you do need to make sure that when you're budgeting, that you're budgeting for, or your lender is budgeting for the down payment and closing costs, so that we're making sure we have enough all in out of pocket. Once we have a target number in mind, then what's the next step? You go shopping, right?
We go shopping.
We go shopping. So I actually do share all of the parameters and the loan qualifications with Linda so that she knows when she's looking at property. I tell her specifically, okay, single family home, no HOA, here's their max. Condo, 500 maintenance, here's their max. So obviously, if we're looking at condos, you're going to be looking at, if we're looking at condos, the maintenance fee has a direct impact on your monthly payment. And so if you find something that's $300 a month, then we can increase your purchase price accordingly. If you find something that's $800 a month, we have to bring that purchase price down. So I think Linda does a really great job in determining like what that sweet spot is for them. She's had the discovery call on their like needs and wants and wish list as far as what properties, what types of properties, what areas, and so together we figure out kind of where that sweet spot is for you guys. So once you guys are going shopping, and then what? You found something, or
Right.
they found something, or you give me a list of properties that they're going to be looking at, right? So ideally, I like to know which properties you guys are going to go look at, because I want to be able to run the numbers and say, okay, yeah, this fits within our box, or no, it doesn't. Sometimes the property taxes are the killer of deals. You have to qualify based on the current assessed property taxes. If you're looking to purchase a property where the current seller doesn't live in the property, they're not claiming the home exemption, property taxes may be a couple $100 more per month, and that is going to impact your qualification. So I go through, I look them all up, and I say yay or maybe or nay, right?
Yep.
And then once you find a property that you actually really love and you want to put in an offer, then what do I do, Linda?
So then I call Mina and I let her know this is what we're going to write the offer for. This is what the down is based on what she's given me for information and what the earnest money is. And then she will draft up a specific pre-approval letter for that property. And sometimes we will also do proof of cash funds if she's made it that far with the people.
Yeah.
Right? So we will, yeah.
So a lot of people ask me if I do blanket pre-approval letters. So like, oh, okay, great, I qualified to 500. Can I get a pre-approval letter? Generally, I don't. Mostly because we don't really want to show all of our cards to the seller when we're putting in an offer. If you happen to offer less than asking, we don't necessarily want them to know that you're pre-approved up to X amount. So from a strategic standpoint, we do try to just make that pre-approval letter tailored exactly to the actual offer that you guys are putting in. So you put in an offer, sellers liked it, you got it accepted, now the real fun begins. So the first 2 weeks of the transaction is just hold on to your pants, because it's going to be 300 emails a day. Not really, maybe I don't know, at least 10s of emails per day, DocuSigns. You have to go drop off your earnest money deposit check. You have to go hire a home inspector, get that scheduled, make sure it works with stuff. There's just a lot. There's a flurry of things that happens in that first 2 weeks. So once all of that stuff dies down, though, I promise it'll get better, and it'll be kind of quiet, and you're going to wonder what's going on. I'm going to reach out to you, and I'm going to ask to update your docs, right? So I collected pay stubs, bank statements during the pre-approval process, and now I need them updated. It could have been that we went into contract right away. It could have been 6 months later. We're going to update all of those docs, get fresh bank statements, fresh pay stubs, W-2s, if new ones have posted, and then I'm going to also send you rate options. So if you've purchased recently, or you've purchased a lot of real estate, that may mean something to you, but every single person has their own interest rate based on their FICO, their property type, their loan to value, or how much they're putting down. And every single person has choices. You get to choose interest rates. You can choose to pay points to buy the rate down further. You can choose to pay less points and take a higher interest rate. So I like to give 3, 4, 5 options to say, okay, here are your options. If you pay X amount of points for this rate, here's what you're gonna save on your monthly payment, and here's your break-even point. So that's a conversation piece for us to really understand, or make sure that you understand what those mean. And it really depends on the individual in terms of cash availability, what's your plan for the house. We can't tell the future, but we can just go based on what the current intents are for the property. we've locked in the rate, we've updated our docs, I'm sending the loan into processing. So it's going into my internal processing, and that processor is going to scrub the file and make sure that I've got everything, that I've done my job correctly, and then they're going to send the loan into underwriting there. So we've locked in the rate, we've updated our docs, we sent the loan into processing, and I've ordered my appraisal.
Yeah.
In Hawaii, appraisals take pretty long compared to the mainland. You're looking at every island's different. So Oahu, the volume has slowed down a lot across the nation, and so the turn times have gotten a lot better for appraisals, but depends on the island. If I'm doing a loan, and it depends on the property too, because if you're talking higher end, where it's more difficult to appraise, or it's rural, or it's got some quirky things going on with it, those are going to take longer and they're going to be more expensive. But if Linda sends me a property, or we're in escrow, and the property is in Kona and it's a condo, easy to comp. So those are probably nowadays coming back in like 2.5 weeks.
If that, yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Kauai is still probably 3 to 4 weeks. Maybe like 2.5 to 3 weeks. During COVID, it was 4 to 6 weeks on Kauai, easily. Anyway, so and on Oahu too, I just got one back in like, I don't know, 5 days.
Yeah.
So it just depends, but we do try to get those ordered right up front so that we know what we're dealing with in terms of not being late on the timeline, but also what's it going to price out at? What's the determined market value of the property? So conditional loan approval. There's 2 different kinds of conditional loan approval. It's the same kind, but Linda's view of a conditional loan approval is different than mine. So as a lender, when you submit your loan into processing, the underwriter reviews all the documents that you submitted, the property that you're trying to purchase. They will issue you a conditional loan approval. But on there, the appraisal is going to be a condition because they have to value the property, they have to review the appraisal, condition of the property, etc. The conditional loan approval based on the purchase contract that's due is a deliverable for the lender. If there's financing involved, there's 2 deliverables I guess there's 4. 2? 3? Pre-approval letter I've already provided.
Yes,
That's
you have. Proof of cash funds.
Cash funds I've provided.
Yep.
And then we have conditional loan approval and final loan approval. So really, I mean, you can put whatever date you want in there, but 15 days.
I always write 15 if it's a 45-day close. Yeah.
In the purchase contract, it specifically says that the conditional loan approval that the lender is going to issue for that, what is it, a contingency? Contingency.
Financing contingency.
Is not going to be, or the underwriter has reviewed the appraisal. So that's kind of the biggest difference between the conditional I get and the conditional that she wants. So in the lending world, the appraisal being reviewed by the underwriter really happens at final. So this does kind of depend on lender to lender, but by the time, the appraisal is typically the last thing I get in a transaction. They just take the longest. So I've already been running, sprinting, getting all the conditions in, figuring out what insurance they want to go with, giving the underwriter any explanations for credit inquiries, address, name variations. A lot of different conditions are going to come up. Sometimes they want sourcing of large deposits. Sometimes they want clarification on certain things. Sometimes you're paying child support. Once the underwriter reviews the file, they're going to give you a list of conditions. I go to you, and we work together to satisfy all the conditions. We gather them all up, and we send it back to the underwriter. Hopefully at that point we have the appraisal back. Appraisal does take the longest. If we have the appraisal in by then, all of our conditions are in, we're going to send it in for a resubmission for final loan approval. Because in Hawaii appraisals take so long, usually you're going to be sending your file in for final loan approval. So these purchase contract deadlines and what we consider to be conditional loan approval and final loan approval don't necessarily go hand in hand. Linda doesn't really care what my definition of conditional is, just that I deliver a conditional loan approval to her. That's not contingent on the appraisal. So we've got the appraisal, everything looks great, and we've got all the conditions. I've sent the loan back in for final loan approval. The underwriter re-reviews all of the conditions and everything I've submitted with the conditions, and then they issue
final loan approval,
also known as
clear close.
Final loan approval. So when you hear your lender say those words, you should be happy. It ain't over till the fat lady sings, which is when we record. But that means you've at least satisfied all of your loan conditions, your financing's looking good, and we can now move to the next milestone. So the closing disclosure is something that came out post housing crisis. It's basically a list of all of your fees, your loan attributes, and there's a mandatory 3-day waiting period for you to review it, ask any questions, and then sign it. So from the day that you sign that closing disclosure, acknowledging the receipt of it, then the clock starts ticking. So we've got 3 days, and then we can actually sign. So physically, you'll come to escrow, you'll meet with a mobile notary, and you'll sign your loan docs. A lot of lenders these days have hybrid closings, so you have anything that doesn't need to be notarized can be e-signed, which helps a lot in closing time frame. Used to be like an hour, and it was like, I guess it depends on how many questions you ask.
Right.
For the real curious ones, it would take me an hour. And then for the ones that are not so curious, we would 30 minutes tops. But now that we have all of the ones that don't need to be notarized signed ahead of time, and it gives you an opportunity to look over them ahead of time and ask any questions, it really cuts down on the signing time. So then you meet with the notary, you sign the ones that require the notarization. The escrow company scans those back to the lender. The lender then will review them, make sure you didn't miss any signatures. They'll make sure you satisfy any prior to funding conditions, and then they will fund the loan. So in Hawaii, so the Good Funds Law states that escrow must have all funds from the borrower and from the lender in escrow, and has to sit there for 2 business days before we can record with the Bureau of Conveyances. So we are not a wet funding stage. So if you've come from the mainland or you've bought houses in the mainland, where you sit at a table with an attorney, you sign, and you get your keys. Everything in Hawaii is slow. Everything. We're on island time. So you're gonna get final loan approval, you're gonna be half excited, have a sip of champagne, not the whole glass, and then you're gonna go and sign your documents, and then you're gonna wait 2 days.
2 days.
Depends on the
Business
lender.
days.
2 days or so. And then the lender will send their funds to escrow. You will send in the remaining of your funds for your down payment, closing costs, whatever is remaining. And then for 2 days, we patiently wait. Okay, funding is when I drink like half the champagne glass. So we've funded. The lender has said we've completely reviewed your file. We've sent our money. We're done.
Sent it to escrow.
Sent it to escrow, not to me.
Yep.
To escrow, we're done. The lender's actually hands off at that point. So they've already sent their funds in, and from their perspective, that's the lender's closing date. However, in Hawaii, because we have the Good Funds Law, they are going to wait the 2 days before they can record with the Bureau of Conveyance. So I get people asking me all the time, like, when do I get keys? Is that my closing date, or is that the recording date, or is that the escrow settlement date? Those are all the same thing. So we just like to confuse you. Your closing date is when you get your keys. Escrow settlement date and your what did I say?
Recording.
Closing and recording date are all the same dates. So as of 8 a.m. on the day of recording is when you officially become the owner of the property, and you make a date with Linda to collect your keys.
Right.
Yep. And then you get to celebrate. Only at recording do I recommend actually downing the entire glass of champagne. No, but really, it's not over until the fat lady sings. I always say that. So, it's okay to celebrate a little with these as we go through the milestones, but it's really not over until you've recorded.